Supreme Court's overnight ruling is already setting off a number of legal questions over the administration's deportation policy, as well as what it means for those already in El Salvador, like Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Here with me now is trial attorney and legal analyst Misty Marris. Misty, good morning.
Good morning, Hena.
As Jesse just noted, this is a pause. So what kind of discovery will be needed as the Supreme Court now weighs making a final decision on these deportation flights?
Yes, so this is a pause. It means that they're temporarily restrained from deporting this group of individuals, and they're waiting for the appellate courts in the jurisdiction where they're detained to have their say. So that's what the Supreme Court did. And remember, this is directly linked to the decision of the Supreme Court last week. I mean, we're hearing from the Supreme Court basically twice in very, very short period of time, where the Supreme Court said, Trump administration can use the Alien Enemies Act for deportations, but they have to give adequate notice to those individuals who are going to be deported so that they can contest it, basically giving them the option for due process. They also made another major change, Hena, and this is really important. Those initial petitions to pause deportations and to contest deportations were made in Washington, D.C. under the Administrative Procedures Act. The Supreme Court said that's not the right avenue. You have to use what's called a habeas corpus petition. That means the court of jurisdiction is actually where they're detained. So you see today's order seeking clarity from an appellate court in Louisiana where they're actually detained. So that change in process is also a major factor, why we're seeing this halt and why we'll need more clarity from the appellate court as to whether or not that notice required by the Supreme Court was actually fulfilled by the Trump administration.
Misty, what does this ruling mean for those who have already been deported to that mega prison in El Salvador, including Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the men that are already there?
So Kilmar Abrego Garcia has a different situation because the Trump administration publicly acknowledged that it was administrative error. So the Supreme Court specifically spoke to him and said, you have to facilitate his return. There's a huge question mark about what that word facilitate actually means, how far the Trump administration needs to go. So he's one unique case. The rest of those cases, Hena, the Supreme Court's order today nor last week provided any relief for those that were already deported. It provided potential due process paths so that they can contest their deportation in court for those who are awaiting deportation or who ultimately are classified as those who are going to be deported. So unfortunately, for that large group of people who's already there is no clear pathway for them to challenge those decisions.
The Supreme Court voted 7-2. Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas sided with the Trump administration. Misty, as we're taking a step back and looking at these cases, does this send a bigger signal that the court might be willing to take on more immigration and deportation-related cases?
Definitely, Hena. And again, we have Supreme Court whiplash here. We're seeing decisions coming out of the Supreme Court. We just talked about 3 in this segment. You know, we need the full hour to go through all of the legal issues with this. But to your point, Trump is invoking the Alien Enemies Act, which is used under wartime. And it's a really, really rarely invoked act. So right now, we know the Supreme Court has spoken on, okay, they can use it. Trump administration can use it. But what are the parameters going to be? And Trump is continually using executive orders to push the envelope. The reason the Alien Enemies Act is so different than usual immigration processes, it allows them to do deportations in an expedited fashion. It's kind of jumping over process that would normally be at play under the Immigration and Nationality Act. So because the Trump administration is aggressively pursuing these deportations using uniquely invoked laws, I think we're going to hear from the Supreme Court a lot on these issues, not just is the law applicable and appropriate, but how far can the Trump administration go? And again, a common theme right now, the executive branch power versus judicial branch versus legislative branch. So a whole host of issues that are likely to make their way to SCOTUS.
And thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.